Hello and welcome, I'm Olga Aivazovska and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. The Ukrainian Parliamentary election campaign has begun in the end of May. 7 weeks before the July 21st election, the political field is still full of undecided players and new parties which need to finalize the candidates on the ballot by June 20th. To talk more about the snap parliamentary election campaign, we're joined in the studio today by Olga Aivazovska, Director of the Board of the Civil Network OPORA. Hello and thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
So first, let's discuss what procedures have been changed in the parliamentary election campaign if we compare it to the presidential election campaign. So what major changes have been approved already?
First of all, it's different legislation for presidential and parliamentary elections, and we have a different type of electoral system because during presidential we had single mandate system, now parallel. So the role of political parties will be very high during this campaigning, and they are going to register their party list till 20th of June, and then CEC will have 5 days for the decision-making process about that. At the same time, we will have elections in 199 single-mandate electoral districts, and CEC already started to register these candidates. So those candidates which were registered already, they are under the responsibility about legislation of electoral system. Those candidates who will register till deadlines, they will have a gap for violations, unfortunately, but because they will not be under responsibilities because they are not subject of electoral process for now. At the same time, we have a big gap.
Gap for violations in the election campaign, you mean?
Yes.
This is
because
interesting.
They didn't have official role or will not have official role till deadline as candidates during this campaigning before the registration.
But they can send a message to the public.
Yes.
I mean, they still represent even some political party. They might represent, so there could be some interesting stories. I do understand that parliamentary and presidential elections differ, but in terms of the procedure for ordinary people, it's the same. They receive the ballot and they vote. So what has been changed? And maybe something has been simplified in the parliamentary elections because people have been anticipating the parliament to simplify the procedure of changing the voting address so people can vote in other cities without the problem. So what has been done?
First of all, not all Ukrainian voters will have the same number of ballots because of their registration. If they are living on those territories when they have registration, they will have two votes or 2 ballots because they are going to vote for a proportional part of the system, party list, and for single mandate candidates. Those citizens who are living out of the places, cities or regions where they have official registration, they can temporarily change the place of voting, but they will have only 1 ballot for proportional part of electoral system, and they will vote only for political party list. At the same time, Central Election Commission did a great job about simplification of the process for temporary change place of voting. That's why now voters can apply to the special administration of voter register in each of the rayons administration all over Ukraine with official request and their passports, and they will need anything like documents, agreements with owners of the flats, or some documents from the voters, and so on. So now they just if they will have political will to vote, they have to come as soon as it's possible, but not later than 5 days before electoral day.
July 15th.
July 15th, and apply for the temporary change of place of vote.
This is great. This is great, but I would also like to discuss some problems. The head of the Central Election Commission, Tatiana Slipachuk, said that there are a number of key issues which need to be addressed still. She noted the law of Ukraine on elections of people's deputies of Ukraine contains some outdated provisions that do not comply with other applicable laws. What does this mean?
Central Election Commission has a great and big problem about tenders procurement system, because the schedule of official procurement procedures and the schedule of ad hoc extraordinary election is very different. That's why CEC doesn't have enough time for whole steps of the procurement. At the same time, they can't buy or spend money, buy services or spend money for any of the goods and services without procurements. That's why now it's under the responsibility of Parliament to exclude CEC from the legislation about procurements, or government can adopt some changes or acts, but it's not enough for CEC to work according to the law.
Is this on the agenda for the next session?
I'm not sure that we will see enough MPs in the plenary session in the Parliament for voting for this draft law. At the same time, it was registered, and last week it was in the schedule in agenda of Verkhovna Rada. But parliamentarians didn't adopt these changes because it was a part of so-called political agenda about changes of electoral system. That's why I think it was a big gap to have one box with two political and technical decisions.
Yeah, indeed, the situation is pretty odd because the electoral process will last only for 58 days, and usually the terms and procedures of the procurement system last for much longer periods of times. What other problems would you mention that should be resolved?
It's about so-called flexible values of judicial system. It's about...
You mean now the decision of the Constitutional Court whether the new electoral code, whether the snap elections are legitimate?
Yeah. It's about legitimate base for the act and decision of the president to call extraordinary election, first of all. Because we have separate norms that elections can be stopped in any way. At the same time, we have very interesting practice in 2010 when Constitutional Court changed the constitution through their procedures. But I don't believe that current Constitutional Court will adopt something like that.
Why would you say so?
Because it's very dangerous for them as an institution. And I don't believe that society will accept this decision, because now we have hot discussions in each of the streets, villages, or I don't know, houses about political issues and this ad hoc electoral process.
Well, this is indeed very interesting because, yeah, the majority of Ukrainians, they do support the President Zelensky and his decision to dismiss the parliament because they developed a lot of hate towards the MPs and they do want the snap elections. So probably the Constitutional Court is having a difficult time right now on issuing the sentence. I would like to refer now to Victoria Sumar, the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Freedom of Speech and Information Policy, to the phrase that she said before the presidential election. And I have a quote here. We can accurately foresee that the parliamentary campaign will be no less and perhaps more dramatic, as Ukraine still lives in a parliamentary presidential republic, and whoever becomes president, this will be a weak president. And he can only strengthen his position due to serious presence in the parliament. So the struggle for the parliament will be a key element of the struggle for power in 2019. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, I agree with that. And first of all, new president has a capacity, or his political wave before the election has enough opportunity to have a good results during and after this election, and to build new coalition with only one political party, within one political party, Sluga Narodu, or with one more smaller political fraction. That's why it's about capacity of new president, and it's about full majority position through three different branches of power, like parliament, government, and president. That's why this campaign will be more dramatic than presidential, because we saw the sociological resources and researches and polls during presidential campaigning, and it was more or less predictable. Now it's more unpredictable because of the part of electoral system, which will be elected through single mandate districts.
So the battle has already started, the election campaign has started. How would you evaluate it, and maybe how would you evaluate the ongoing process of forming the lists of candidates?
During this first stage of electoral process, we monitor the procedures of the forming of district election commission. First of all, it's the first physical and legal stage of this campaigning. I can tell you that something was wrong, or against the legislation when CEC formed this district election commission. At the same time, we started to monitor situation on the ground in different regions of Ukraine. We are going to have 300 LTOs, long-term observers, and 1,500 STOs, short-term observers, in electoral day. We started to cover not only political field, but some violations, not according to Ukrainian legislation, but according to international standards. When some of the future candidates use their power, for example, for changing the schedule of the students' session, or some of the candidates in single mandate districts started to share goods, services with the voters, which might be assessed as voting bribery according to legislation. But till that time, when they will be registered as the candidates, we can't use any irreversible punishment for those people.
This is very interesting, and this is what we all started discussing at the very beginning of our conversation. Unfortunately, we're about to run out of time, but what can you tell us about the newcomers into the politics? Because, yes, the president is basically a newcomer, Volodymyr Zelensky. He is a showman. Then we know that famous singer Sviatoslav Vakarchuk formed his own party, which is called Voice, and it's 80% done with forming the list of candidates. We know that Volodymyr Zelensky forms this Servant of People party, and the party is still not ready with the list, and it's searching for this single-member district nominees online. So then we know the celebrity, this extravagant pop singer Olga Aivazovska, and TV presenter, that she stated that she wanted to start an all-women political party. So what's your take on this, on newcomers, and also on the artists joining the politics?
From one hand, all of them have a constitutional passive right to be elected. That's why we, as representatives of NGO who are going to observe and monitor these elections, are watching on their rights, not about some flexible things. From another hand, it's like such stage of political culture in Ukraine, when mostly voters are against the old generation of politicians with old style of governing and so on. And some of the singers or, I don't know, actors might have all possibility to win these elections, especially through single mandate.
Yeah, because of their popularity also.
But it's not only about Ukraine. Truly, we are on the same wave as many EU countries or even the USA.
It's going to be very short, but very heated race, I would anticipate. Yeah, and we know that Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman revealed the name of his new party, Ukrainian Strategy. Former President Petro Poroshenko is rebranding his party onto the European Solidarity. Let's see what comes later, and I hope that we can continue this discussion some other day. Thank you so much for being a guest today in our studio. That was Olga Aivazovska, Director of the Board of the Civil Network OPORA. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Olga Aivazovska. Goodbye.